Okay, so this next talk is a good continuation of the previous talk. I'm Tex Zen from Tech, and I wish to. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I wish to answer this gentleman at the front's question about asynchronous API. So this is what I'm going to talk about. And GovTech, in fact, the ADEX program is using Solace for asynchronous data exchange. So I'm going to, for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about how Solace as a company enables asynchronous APIs. Okay, my name is Steve Chan. I work. I'll talk louder. So here, I'm going to talk about why they probably need a microphone for recording, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to talk about why REST APIs maybe are not enough. Now, we are in API days after all, so we know everything about APIs. APIs tend to be request response, right? You call an API, you wait for the answer, and then the answer comes back to you. So that's request response. But there is another form of API that is push. So instead of you asking, has something changed, has something changed, has something changed, you can get notified when something has changed, all right? So these are called event APIs or asynchronous APIs. And this slide is just a quick slide from Gartner. So even Gartner thinks that REST-based APIs are not sufficient going forward, right? So Gartner keeps saying about you need to think faster, you need to react faster. Your systems, your tech, your IT needs to react faster. And the more you need real time, the more you must be event native. So what do they mean by event native? Apologize for the size of the diagram. So in the old days, a database or some kind of data store, some kind of state storage was at the center of our tech universe, right? Every time we design a new application, we think first, okay, we need a database. We need to store the stuff. And then everything revolves around the database. Your services, your applications, whatever is all built around the database. But Gartner says that in future, our tech, our systems, our IT systems should revolve around events instead of a state storage like a database. And everything should revolve around events, which is what that diagram on the bottom right says. Right? That means even your state, even your database, your apps should revolve around events. So we have to have an event-native mindset. Now, what does this have to do with APIs? A lot of companies these days are thinking to go event native. I'll give you a few quick examples. Connected cars, right? Connected cars. Imagine you have 10 million cars in your connected car fleet, like your Ford or Toyota or something like that, right? Are you going to poll the car, every car, all the time to find out the information on the car? You know, is the oil level okay? Is the fuel level okay? Are you going to poll 10 million cars? How often are you going to poll them? Obviously, you can't do it. It's not scalable, right? You need the car to push the information to you. That's a push kind of event. Trading, real-time trading. You have traders looking at prices, trading on the prices. Are all the traders going to poll your API gateway saying, what's the price, what's the price? And this could be low latency trading. They could be trying to poll like 100 times a second. That's not scalable. You've got to push the prices to them. That's another form of asynchronous API. Inventory, real-time inventory, same thing. You're going to poll all your stores, all your branches, all your kiosks for inventory? No. You want to push to you, right? Industrial maintenance. You've got 20,000 robots in your connected factory. You're going to poll every one of them? No. Supply chain, again. Supply chain involves a lot of pieces. from your containers to your ships, to your ports, to your logistics operators, all that. Event-driven. Flight tracking, same thing, right? So the world is moving towards event-driven. And of course, as in any seminar, we've got to ask ChatGPT, what does ChatGPT think of REST APIs? So even ChatGPT agrees with us. It says that REST APIs may not be sufficient for handling asynchronous events. Right? And you can read the blurb if you want. So even the robot agrees with us. So at Solace sells something called an event mesh. An event mesh is basically like a central nervous system where all your asynchronous events can flow throughout your enterprise and beyond, even beyond your enterprise, to your partners, to your customers' devices, to your IoT devices, all in a seamless mesh. And I just want to talk about what does an event mesh consist of. So it consists of events that are flowing, but these events are tagged, right? They're like hashtagged, right? You've got events, say an order. Okay, let's start with something simple. Elon Musk. If you want to follow Elon Musk, you follow his hashtag. When he posts something about crypto, you get it, right? Why can't we have the same sort of thing for IT, for tech? Why can't I listen to events on a hashtag or something, and some system or person that publishes that on that tag, on a hashtag, I'll get the message immediately. Why can't this concept of tagging apply to tech, to IT? Well, in fact, it does, except we call them topics, right? In tech, we call the hashtag or the tag a topic. So you tag a topic to an event. So the event, a new order, or a new customer, or an order has shipped, or a payment has been made, an order has been cancelled. All these kinds of things are events that can be tagged with a topic. And the topic has, as you can see, a hierarchy, and it has fields, and you can filter on each field using wildcards. So for example, if I'm only interested in payment events in Singapore, I can subscribe to */*/SG. So I'll only get all the payment events in Singapore and not any other country. Or I can put my wildcard somewhere else. I can, for example, on the right-hand side, I can say, I don't care what version of this order event there are. I want to subscribe. I'm interested in all versions. Version 1, version 2, version 3, version 1000. I don't care. Just give me any version of this order. Oops, sorry, going backwards. So, and I'll get into what this has to do with APIs soon. This is the last slide before that. So you can think of this tagging topics as a very, very powerful way of describing your events. So basically, a topic or a tag, a hashtag, consists of a noun plus a verb plus some sort of metadata. So it could mean that the noun could be a payment, the verb could be initiation, like a payment has been created, and the metadata could be the payment itself, or some other things describing the payment. So in this case, we have a payment that's been initiated in India. It's version 1 of the event. As we know in tech, we have version things because whatever we have today will not be the same. We always have to have different versions. It's coming from the UPI system in India, Universal Payments Interface. It's a payment to do with CASA, which is current account savings account. It's a taxi payment, and the taxi payment is going to the Ola taxi company. So you can tag events like that as much as you can to fully describe it for the purposes of filtering it later, right? So for example, if I'm a bank and I need to process this payment and I need to pay the Ola ride-sharing company, I can subscribe to */*//Ola, right? And only those events will go to the Ola taxi company. Right, so topics are crucial. It's a tagging of the events. That's what you can think. It's like a tag of the event. So, how does this relate to APIs? Well, there's a new kind of API called event-driven APIs. Who attended the talk this morning from Claudio about event-driven API? Was anyone in the chamber this morning about 11:30? So Claudio, okay. So oh, he's here, fantastic, okay. So Claudio introduced event-driven APIs to us, all right? So event-driven APIs are a new kind of asynchronous kind of API, where instead of you doing request, reply, request, reply, request, reply, the system pushes the information to you asynchronously. Right? It's a push model instead of a request reply. And they're both necessary, right? I'm not saying we need to get rid of all the request reply. You still need request reply. Of course, you need to query things. You also need a different form of API. Right? They're good for different things, right? Your REST APIs is good for when you want to query something. Like if you the Hasura talk, this has a very nice GraphQL way of exposing your data as API. So that's request reply. You still need that. But an event-driven API is useful for when you want to distribute information to many things at the same time, the same kind of information, like flight data, right? Say you're running Changi Airport, and you want to publish flight arrival times for taxi companies like Grab, Gojek, Comfort, whatever. You can just publish that event to them. When a flight lands, you publish to taxi companies. You can monetize that, right? You can ask them to pay you a subscription to get real-time flight data because it's valuable to those taxi companies. They can send their fleet to the airport. And managing both is the key to success, right? You need to manage both synchronous APIs and async APIs in the same tools that you use to. So for example, this is a very simple use case. You've got a customer placing a new order on your website. The customer is buying a product, right? The first interaction is request because you want to check whether the order is valid. Is the price correct? So that's a synchronous call, a traditional, good old garden variety REST call, as we all know. But some of the parts, some of the process that's after the initial validation, they can be asynchronous, right? Your inventory, your call to inventory could be async. Your shipping could be async, the call to the shipping system. And the call to your CRM system to upgrade her loyalty points on your system could be async, right? So the real world consists of sync and async interactions. It doesn't have to be all sync. And your other stakeholders, maybe your partner companies, they can also be async. So that means the customer has a really good experience because when she places the order, it's nice and quick, she gets validated, and the order says, okay, thank you for your order, process it. And all the rest is async. It's a really good customer experience, very fast ordering process. So we need to manage these events as products, as what's called an event API product. So this is a new specification. It's called event API product. So it's basically a specification that lets you package events as APIs, as asynchronous APIs that you can then perhaps monetize. All right, so you can bundle these events, APIs that you can push to your partners or your customers. And they're all managed together with your existing API management technologies. Right, so classic use case, order status. You can expose that as to your maybe logistics providers, your shipping providers. Inventory, you can expose those APIs, those events to your suppliers so they know when to ship things to you, your raw materials. Pricing, you can also expose pricing changes to your partners or downstream systems. It's event-driven APIs. So that they don't have to keep polling you. Has the price changed? Has the price changed? Give me the whole catalog. Give me the very. So event management is just like API management, right? With the existing RESTful way, we have API gateways, we have API management tools, we have discovery portals, etc. So the same thing applies for the event-driven world. You still need to catalog these event-driven APIs. You need to let your consumers discover these APIs. You need to share them, you need to reuse them, you need to maybe analyze them, version them, etc. So all the same things apply. But the difference is, with event-driven APIs, you need an event broker to push these events out. Now, we're not talking, you can also, of course, do it using webhooks. But the problem with webhooks is that you need to know the address of every single consumer out there. And as the number of consumers grow, it's not easily manageable, right? Imagine if you need to send your price to 20,000 of your customers out there. Do you want to have 20,000 webhooks in your system and the system calling them? No, right? You're probably better off with some sort of event broker that can publish these price changes out. So the analogy to the API gateway for the event-driven APIs is an event broker. So your publishers and your consumers are clients to this event broker, and it's all done using publish subscribe at runtime. Okay, at design time, you need to integrate these events, the schemas, the topics, back to the same API management portal that you're using existing. So your customers, the consumers of your APIs, it doesn't matter whether it's a RESTful API or an event-driven API, they can see, discover, and use them and configure them all from the same place. Right? That's the secret of its success. So Solace has a tool called the Event Portal, which allows you to manage these events, whether the events come from Kafka or Solace or other brokers. Right? You can manage, govern, catalog all these events in the same place, in the Solace Event Portal. And you can use Event Portal to push these event APIs to your existing API gateways, the likes of Axway and so on. So you have a unified API management, whether it's synchronous, RESTful APIs or asynchronous APIs, you can manage them in the same place. That's the secret, right? So you have hybrid of synchronous and async events in your API gateway, API portal. Right? Unified API management is the key to success. So you have, of course, when a new consumer wants to get access to your API, it has to go through an approval process. So once it gets approved, then you point them to the event broker properties. They can connect to the broker, and then they can start subscribing to the appropriate events. Right, so the API gateway, your existing API gateway and broker will live side by side. Right? One is for RESTful APIs and one is for asynchronous APIs. But they will be managed, cataloged, and from the same place. It's just the runtime, it hits a different endpoint. That's it. Right, so this is a typical workflow. Somebody wants access to an API. They discover it from the catalog, they download the schema, then they get approval, and then they can connect and get the information and start consuming those APIs. Right, so obviously it's good to have a unified API management. Your developers and your consumers know where to look because it's the same place as before. Right, so that concludes my talk. Our booth just outside, just opposite there. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions. continue this conversation. Any questions about asynchronous APIs? Yes.
Two slides. Yeah. The one with the hybrid. Yeah, a few more. Sorry, no, not two. Yeah, one more back. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Could you share a case study on that and talk about the architecture of the hybrid and REST?
Yes. So a classic architecture is you. Let's go back to the ordering use case. Right? Say one of your large customers places an order for your products. So the initial ordering, the validation is synchronous. But then when your product gets shipped, maybe you send an async API to them to say, your product has been shipped, and then as the product is tracked from your factory to the delivery, it's reached the port, city, it's about to be delivered this afternoon at 3 p.m. So those notifications can be async, but the initial order placement could very well be synchronous. Right? So it's a hybrid of sync and async, but they all connect through the same API as they do already today. Right? So it's seamless to them. It's the same. It looks the same. But in fact, they're getting something synchronous and something's asynchronous. So not is everything to be synchronous. Like today, probably 9% of calls to API gateways are synchronous. Right? But a lot of it could be asynchronous. Right? You don't want the customer to keep polling your API gateway. Where's my product? Where's my product? Where's it shipping? When is it shipping? You don't want to do that, right? You want to just push these events to them when they change. But today, everyone's calling APIs, hitting the API gateway constantly, trying to get changes in information. Any other questions? It's about time, isn't it? Okay, please visit our booth. We'll be very happy to discuss anything else. And